one of the ways to keep the bottom clean when you're working with glaze is to use wax, or to use resist, I should say. So I've got a couple pieces here that have been bisqued, and I'm going to put wax resist on them. Actually, I'm going to grab yet another one. So the hot wax is one option. There's two types of wax you can use, and more than that, types of resist. This hot wax tray I've just plugged in, and you can see, if I take the lid off, you can see that it's starting to melt. It's not, part of it's liquid and part of it's still a little bit solid here. I've turned this dial to warm, and I'm not going to turn it hotter than warm. If you turn it up beyond warm, it's going to start to spit. Two problems with that. One is it hurts, potentially fire hazard if you get real hot. And if you have other pieces here, as that's spitting, it's getting wax on other people's stuff where they don't want it. Wax resist prevents glaze from sticking to a surface, or it helps to prevent it from sticking to a surface. It's not required. You do not have to use wax, but I'm going to show you a couple ways of using wax that's just helpful. Another type of wax we can use while we're waiting for this to melt is this pink wax. The pink wax is just a water-soluble wax. It's in these little jars. You can use any kind of paintbrush with it. So we've got a bunch of paintbrushes over here and a rubber tip tool that doesn't belong over here. I'm going to use this small pink wax, or small brush to put the pink wax on, and I'm going to put it on to two places on this piece. This is a lidded piece, and I want to make sure that my lid doesn't stick, glaze doesn't stick to it. And so I'm going to paint this pink wax on the lid. The pink wax, I think, is particularly useful for things like this, small details where you're trying to add, where you're trying to make, keep the wax from one small area. You can also use this wax to do the bottoms. And some people prefer it because they feel like they have a little bit more control over where their wax is going. So you can paint this on. I might need a bigger brush. You can paint this on the bottom. This takes a little bit of time to dry. It's not quite as fast as the hot wax. But like I said, you have more control over it, and you can actually go sit in the other room and wax a bunch of pieces if you want to. Now I'm coming up my undercut here. I'm coming up about 1/4 of an inch. Because that's the rule in the studio. I want glaze 1/4 of an inch from the bottom of all your pieces and not on the very bottom of your piece. Now I'm not going to make you watch me wax this entire thing, but I will come through and finish up waxing all of those edges. I'm going to leave this upside down to dry right here. This brush for the pink wax can be washed in the sink. It'll wash right off, and that is different than the hot wax brushes. So my hot wax is almost ready. It's mostly melted here. But I want to mention to you about the brushes here. So this container of brushes and things people haven't put away is only for hot wax. Once we've got the hot wax on that brush and it cools, it's permanent, right? It's not coming off of there. Now this is not a very useful brush right now, right? If I try to paint something, it's like using a stick. But what I've done, and what you can see I've done here, is I've taken its partner, another brush like that, and I've put it into this hot wax, and the wax in the bristles of the brush have started to melt. That's what we use these brushes for. Please don't add to these. We need like 3 brushes here, and we've got 20. That's because people keep misunderstanding and sticking extra brushes here. We don't need any more brushes here. So use the brushes that are there. If you absolutely need a smaller one, we've got a few smaller ones, we've got a few bigger ones, we've got lots of options here. Alright, so this wax is now melted enough for me. I'm going to put some wax on the bottom, and you're going to see how easy hot wax is. I'm done. Well, I'm not actually done, but I want to show you what it looks like if I just do that. So I've put this hot wax on here. I've just set it down in. The wax is absorbed into the clay a little bit. I'm letting it sit because I don't want to tip it over and have dribbles coming down the side. But you can see it's kind of bumpy, and there's a few little holes in here. Now those holes are not going to resist the glaze like they would if there weren't holes there. So what I've just done is not the best way to do it. Now I'm going to show you the best way to do it. I'm going to put that down in there, and then when I take it off of here, I'm immediately going to brush my wet melted brush, I guess I should say, across the bottom. By brushing across the bottom, I've filled in all those little holes, and now I'm not going to have the problem of a bunch of little holes filling up with glaze. Automatically, I've got 1/4 of an inch of wax up the side here, just like I painted on this one. And this piece is ready to go. As soon as it's cool, I can set it down, or I can set it down on its rim. Same thing goes for any kind of sculpture or whatever it is you're working on. Just stick them in there. The hot wax is nice and fast. It also goes exactly where it wants to go. And so if you're trying to get into little details, or if you're trying to keep it off of one section, you have a little bit less control with the hot wax. So it's kind of a personal preference thing. When you are done working with the hot wax, you can put your brush away, turn this off, unplug it, put the lid back on, unless other people are using it. But that's what we want to do at the end of our time using the wax. Is wax optional? No, it is not. I'm sorry, yes it is. Is that wax required? It is not required, it is optional. You can use pink wax, hot wax, or no wax, and I'm going to show you ways to do each of those things. Thanks.